This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Hi there, welcome to episode 267 of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast. This episode is released on Friday the 6th of December, so that's 19 days till Christmas it is. I really can't believe where 2024 has actually gone. Now this episode is part 6, where I'm answering this question that I posed to ChatGPT: what can I expect when working with a sports psychologist? And last week I looked at coping strategies linked to stress and pressure. This week we're going to be looking at coping strategies linked to anxiety. And I'm going to follow that theme that I've done over the last few weeks, where we focus more so on coaches. Yes, as a sports psychologist, I do help athletes in this type of situation, but we also do help coaches. So perhaps the coach who gets overly emotional due to anxiety, and what happens there, maybe the way they feed back to players, the way the anxiety manifests itself before matches. Perhaps you would see a more extroverted character or a introverted character. You might see them on the toilet a lot. They might have a nagging feeling in their stomach before a match. And then when it comes down to maybe the week before, when it comes down to training sessions, they might overanalyze opponents. They might over-criticize, push, and challenge players or athletes too much. They could even catastrophize about the result, and so on and so forth. In the match itself, they might be fearful. Their decision-making might well be inhibited. There might be situations where they freeze. They might go on to be overly reactive and make too many changes, which might also lose trust and confidence in their players really, really quickly. So these are typical things that a coach who suffers with anxiety is likely to face and feel. So as a sports psychologist, how is it that we go on to help a coach in this respect? Well, firstly, it boils down to self-awareness, and we would help a coach understand anxiety better. I'm going to focus in now on state and trait anxiety. So state anxiety, well, it's temporary. It's situational, perhaps towards an opponent or a specific competition or match. The coach would appear tense, they might be apprehensive, they might have fears, doubts and worries, their heart rate might be enhanced, their breathing might be out of sync. Panic attacks can occur in this sort of situation. And it goes back to some of the things that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Trait anxiety is a little bit different. So trait anxiety is linked to your personality type, and that might come down to your childhood, learned behaviours over time, traumas in your life, genetics, all sorts of things. And again, this type of personality is going to experience worry, doubt, fear, but in lots of situations. And this can be misinterpreted often for a lack of confidence, but this isn't true. They would see the environment in general as threatening. So I talk about a threat mindset. This would be this type of person in lots of different situations. They're likely to overreact, to catastrophize. Elevated anxiety basically means on a daily basis that they don't free themselves from worry or apprehension, or they find it difficult to. So I think it's really important to make the distinction that there are different types of anxieties there, because it is very easy to get the two confused. They overlap on occasions, and many people can be really mistaken. You often hear the mental health card is getting bandied around. Well, we've got to be really, really careful with that one. And as a sports psychologist, how would I actually go on to help the coach? Let's have a little think about interventions now. Firstly, it's really, really important, I can't emphasize this one enough, to understand your skill set as a sports psychologist. If a coach has trait anxiety, your best bet is to refer them to a clinical or a counselling psychologist. You might not be the person to be able to help them, depending on your skill set, qualifications, and the extra additional training that you've done. If you are working, however, with the coach who does have trait and state anxiety, first thing is educating them and their fellow coaches. Let them understand the difference between the two. And then if we hone in more so on the state anxiety, or maybe we could call it performance anxiety, learning their triggers is really, really important. And then the subsequent behaviors around those triggers. So maybe the blaming, the shaming, the pointing fingers, the getting overly emotional. And then you've got the bodily experiences that they come across, the heart racing, the tension in certain parts of their body. It's really important to be able to educate and help the coach understand why these things happen and then intervene. And when a coach does experience some of these things, it can take a hit on their own self-worth or self-esteem. They can be very, very hard and self-critical on themselves. They can find it difficult to separate the coach from the actual person because their identity is wrapped around team performances, their performance, and the sport as a whole. So helping them understand that and navigate that is the role of the sport psychologist to a degree. Then we've got techniques and tools to be able to help them. So it might be looking at self-compassionate focused therapy. So how is it that the coach can be kinder to themselves? Can they learn to be more caring and compassionate perhaps? Which to some will be really, really difficult because they get so performance-centric and egos kick in and there's lots of bravado in sport. The fact of the matter is though, if a coach can actually learn to be a bit kinder to themselves and more compassionate, they're more likely to be able to do so for others. So they're more likely to be able to separate the athlete from the person too and try to get to understand the person more so, which naturally is going to help the athlete feel more respected, more valued, and you're probably going to get the most out of their talents and help them perform a lot better. Another thing you might want to look at as a sports psychologist would be mindfulness. So helping the coach stay more present. If they're in an anxious state, there's a fair chance they're going to spend a lot of time either in the future where they're predicting what's going to happen. Potentially they're going to catastrophize, they're going to worry, or they'll go back to the past and self-doubt will kick in. And again, they're going to be overly worrying about past results, past performances, different things that have happened, and then flip again to the future and start predicting that those things are going to happen again. So helping someone be still in the present moment and learn techniques around that, help them see that it's actually a really, really helpful skill, can be a huge benefit to a coach. And then when the coach again recognizes this, picks up these skills, they're in a great position to be able to pass on their wisdom to their athletes, to their players. And short episode of 10 minutes long doesn't really do this topic a whole lot of justice. All we've touched on here is state and trait anxiety. The reality is there is a lot more anxieties out there, be that health, performance, social, generalized, PTSD, and various different phobias as well, which more qualified people than myself would be able to give you better information upon. Anyway, that's all from me for today. I sincerely hope that you found this episode insightful and that you've picked up one or two little ideas to be able to help yourself or help other people. I hope you have a great day. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sport psychology resources. The Sport Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.